Hello, everyone. As we've now learned, a number of world leaders have tested positive for coronavirus. Well, my test was negative, as you all know. In fact, it was so negative that the doctor said they never saw a negative number so low, so low. They said it was beautifully negative. They were very impressed. It was perfect. It was perfectly negative, tremendously negative. Actually, they've never seen a test this negative before in history. And my doctor, he said it best. It was the greatest negative score of anyone who's ever taken the coronavirus test.
Yeah.
Another day, another episode.
401 to the show. Doing this 401 times, traveling around the world, and now we're in Vegas. John D. Domenico. How's it going there?
Hey, great. It's about 100,000 degrees and everything's melting. We went to 110 yesterday, and I think we're going to that today. So that's a lot, 110 degrees. I love it here, but man,
Fahrenheit.
that's hot.
But it's 110 Fahrenheit to Celsius. I gotta know, because we use Celsius in this parts of the world. Oh, that's nothing.
Nothing?
That's our temperature at night. We go up to like, what's 50? Wait, we go 50.
I cannot imagine.
We go like minimum 122 Fahrenheit.
Wow.
Like,
could you imagine that in LA?
Yeah, right.
Night after night,
Too hot.
There'd be even more riots.
I think they'd be. I'd beg to differ. I think people would be less sensitive. There's more things to worry about than random stuff. But other than that, it's great to have you on the show. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Hey, thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Honestly, the pleasure is all ours. So let the world know who you are and what you do.
I'm John D. Domenico. I'm an actor, comedian, writer. I've been doing this my entire adult life, but I'm best known currently for doing Trump on Howard Stern, Conan O'Brien, Jimmy Kimmel, James Corden, Chelsea Handler before she left Netflix, and I do a lot of other characters. I do Austin Powers, baby, Dr. Evil, Dr. Phil, about 30 characters, and I do full makeup. My specialty is kind of extreme impersonation, so it's contacts and prosthetics and wigs, and about as soon as we're done this call, I'll be getting to Trump because I have to shoot a bunch of videos. So that's primarily what I'm known for, but I've done movies and television as myself, but I've ended up in this niche of doing Trump these last few years, and I'm a writer, so I'm able to write and produce material and get it out and put out really good, what I feel is good content, good satirical content.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, it's all hilarious.
It really is. Like, I remember when I first started watching you, I went on a
binge.
Pretty much. It's like, I just kept watching one video after the other, and I was like, wow, this guy is not like, it's funny, but it's scarily close to the real thing, right? Yeah. So what I want to ask is, how did you get into this?
Into impersonations?
Yeah, like impersonations and acting.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of a backstory. When I'm from Ambler, Pennsylvania, which is right outside of Philadelphia. And if you know anything about Philadelphia or any of the Northeast cities in the U.S., it's a lot of row homes. So Ambler had all of these long row homes, and it's almost like Brooklyn or South Philly. And all my neighbors used to sit out. And when I was like 5 years old, I was a ham. I just love to perform, and I would watch TV shows, talk shows, something called Ed Sullivan, which you guys may or may not know about. And I would watch the top comedians of the day, and I would walk outside, and my neighbors were sitting out, and I would do the comedian's act I just saw, especially if they were an impressionist, which I loved. Yeah. So I would go, now right here in our show, the fabulous Garbacho brothers. And my neighbors thought it was really funny. And I got a lot of validation and affirmation out of it, having adults pay attention to me. And, but the thing was, I had a severe speech impediment. So Yeah, I could barely speak, but when I did impressions, I didn't have the impediment. So when I ended first grade, after kindergarten, I was diagnosed, and then I did 8 years of speech therapy, first through eighth grade. And I did 8 years of therapy working with the speech therapist and the speech pathologist, and they were correcting my speech, but unbeknownst to them, they were teaching me how to do pretty much any voice, because now I learned about throat placement, nasal placement, vocal production, sound production, all of these little elements. And it just comes in handy, because when I want to break down a voice, like Trump's probably the perfect one, because you got someone who has a very interesting way of speaking, because it's definitely the throat, it's the Northeast nasality, it's the over pronunciation on certain words, and then the cadence of the speed up and slow down. Believe me, this is true. This is all true. I have to tell you. So that's it. So learning those components made me a better impressionist, a better impersonator. I learned more voices. My neighbors loved it. Then I started doing stuff in school, and then in high school, and also as a kid, there was a great moment. I was watching a movie with my father, and I watched a big, huge fight scene, like a Roman times kind of thing. And I remember saying to my dad, like, how do they do that? Like, some guy got an arrow in his chest. And he said, in Hollywood, they can do anything. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. So I pursued a career in acting and went to New York. And I wanted to I wanted to do everything. I wanted to make movies, be in movies, write movies, do stand-up, do sketch comedy. So I ended up doing a great deal of stuff. But then, when you're in this business a while, you start to find your niche. And I started doing more sketch comedy and stand-up comedy, and then character comedy, and that's where we kind of are today. And it's been amazing. I'm very lucky. I feel like I'm very lucky. I make a living, and this is a tough business. I have friends on Broadway, and I have friends in movies, and I have friends in network television, and it's work. Not the work. The work's the easy part. It's getting the work and consistently staying in physical shape and mental shape, and being ready for the next opportunity. It's very involved, and it's not a job. It's a lifestyle career. It's very few careers where you have to pick where you're going to live, either New York or LA. I chose Vegas only because of proximity to LA. Only because it's cheaper too. But you know what I mean? So overall, and then when social media came along, it actually helped a lot. It gave you a lot more platform, especially for me, because I'm very self-contained. I like to do stuff myself. I don't like people telling me what to do. So
you've come a long way from someone who, had a speech impediment when you were a kid to now that, you created your own roles. I mean, the reason that, you're working actors because you're undeniable, right? I would say,
right. Steve Martin
perfectly.
Yeah, Steve Martin's book said, be unavoidable, be so good, you're unavoidable. And I feel like I'm like, if you've missed me, I don't know how, but I will keep coming at you with more material, more characters. Eventually you'll run into me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's kind of wild that, Trump is your most famous bit, because you did that years ago, right?
Before I started in 2004. Yeah. I was really, again, I've been so lucky. I did Austin. I still do Austin Powers, which is Mike Myers' character. Mm-hmm. But with Trump, I've been fascinated by Trump since 1985. Because when I was planning to move to New York, which was around that time, I was like, let me learn more about New York. And I knew the history of New York and how it got started, but like, what's happening pop culture wise? And I would check the New York papers, and the two names that always came up were Donald Trump and Leona Helmsley. And I'm like, who's this guy? Who's this guy, Donald Trump? Guy?
Yeah.
Why? Who is? And I thought it was like a Horatio Alger story. This guy who was poor and built his life up and ripped his story from the rocks of Manhattan. And it's actually like he's, Silver Spoon Kid and everything. And I ended up buying. I didn't buy it. My wife. I still have the book. Art of the Deal in 1987. My first wife and I said, she goes, what do you want for Christmas? I said, I want Art of the Deal. And she goes, oh boy. So she bought me the book, and the inscription to this day, I think it's hilarious because she wrote, John, Merry Christmas. I know I don't like this guy. I don't like what he stands for, but this is the book you wanted for Christmas. And I thought that was so fascinating. She wrote that in 1987.
Right.
So, and then I within a short period of time, I ended up working for him because Atlantic City opened in the mid to late 80s. And I was a performer. I ended up meeting him in like 1990. Yeah. I did a show at Trump Plaza. So I got to meet him the first time then. And then few years later, about 1995, I was doing Austin Powers all over the place. People Magazine did a nice little story on me. So I got hired to co-host his 55th birthday. I'm not sure if the times line up. So I was on stage with him, got to meet him in rehearsal, got to perform with him, got to do a whole bit with him. So, and that was extremely interesting. That story.
Did you do a Mike Myers bit or a Trump?
Yeah, it was Austin Powers, baby, on stage with Donald Trump. Yeah, baby. Happy birthday, Donald.
You must have loved that. Yeah.
It was a wild night, and kind of a precursor to some of the things that have happened later.
I have to ask you this question. How, like, what, like, let me think about this for a second. What about Mike Myers, Austin Powers, like, did you really enjoy, or what got you to like really appreciate and love that character?
Well, I'll tell you, when that period of time when Mike Myers joined the cast, we were the same age. Right. And I was like, oh my God, this guy who kind of looks like round face, goofy, does a lot of characters. And he started doing Wayne's World. And I was like, well, I can do it. I was like, all right, excellent. Hi, I'm Wayne Campbell from Aurora, Illinois. Excellent. Swing. And I started doing a lot of his characters, and I started doing them at events. Like, people would hire me to be Wayne. I had a guy who was Garth and some of the other characters that he did. And then when he left the show about a year later, that's when Austin Powers came out. And as soon as it came out, I'm like, well, I'm doing this character. I mean, it's when you do impressions and voices, you always think, well, is this voice in my genetic range? Well, I knew it already because I was already doing his other characters. Mm-hmm. So I started doing that in 1997 was my first Austin Powers gig. And I was Austin Powers last Saturday night. So it's another really long period of time to do a character and be so physical, baby. So to answer your question, it was such a groovy, funny throwback character. And like Mike Myers, I love all things British. My sister lives in England. I love British comedy, sketch comedy. There's just something about it. And him amalgamating all of these, the James Bond, all the British comedy, the over-the-top sexy comedy, you know what I mean? And just putting it all together into one film, and the villains and just everything. It was just one of these things where I love this. And then the second one and the third one, it was just, my joke is, and you can't see it, but there's literally an altar in the corner of this office devoted to Mike Myers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I just want to see if you can.
Yeah. What do you have in there?
See right there?
Yeah.
Can you see the three photos? This is all.
Oh, wow. That's him.
Actually, it's me, but this is all me. And then these are all the Austin Powers products. All the stuff that I bought. Yeah.
That's crazy.
I thought it was him.
See, this is where me and you are polar opposites. Where you enjoy Austin Powers a lot, I am deeply in love with Dr. Evil.
Oh, this is why I shaved my head. Because I love Dr. Evil. Scott, you're just not evil enough. You're quasi-evil. You're semi-evil. You're the Diet Coke of evil. Just what Kelly. And I love how they just expanded the character. And when Mini-Me came out, and actually Mini-Me's up top. Do you see Mini-Me?
Yep, I see him right there.
There he is.
Wow.
Yeah. And there's a bunch of Trump dolls too up there I voice. So, But I just think I love the fact that a sketch comedy guy got to develop these characters and expand them out with Dr. Evil and Fat Bastard and all these different I don't know if you guys saw the Pentaveret, but I love the fact that he plays all those. I was a big Peter Sellers fan too, and Alec Guinness. Alec Guinness played a bunch of characters in one film. I maybe it's narcissistic, but I think it's so cool to play against yourself. You know, really, and I've gotten to do that for some videos as Dr. Evil and Austin Powers.
But I think what makes Mike Myers' cases extra special is because Dr. Evil's and Austin Powers are two sides of the same coin.
Yes.
So that kind of helps with him playing on both sides of the role, right? Where he's evil and he's good.
I think it was the second. I think it was the second film when they were on the space on the moon thing where he goes, Austin, you and I aren't that different.
Yep.
I just thought that was, and then he says, Austin, I'm your father. You are? I can't back that up. I just thought that was funny. I can't back that up. Sorry.
But they turned out to be brothers, no?
Which I actually thought there was a mistake.
I was like, that kind of pushed it. But it's still good. I still love it. Like, I still watch Austin Powers from time to time.
I go back. If I need a laugh, I'll just go online and watch the top 25 scenes. I'll just go on YouTube, and they're just so funny, And and in this, at any time in history, and I sincerely mean this, we need comedy. We need things that are uplifting. We need things that unify us. There's nothing like sitting in a movie theater. None of us do that anymore, other than Top Gun. But to sit and laugh together as a community, it's such a wonderful bonding thing. And I can be anywhere in the world. I've done Austin Powers all over thank you, Mike Myers, all over the world. I've done them coast to coast. I've done them in Mexico. I've done them in Canada. I've done them in Bangkok, Thailand, Frankfurt, Germany. I've done them in England. And to be at an event and 25 yards, 50 yards, 100 yards, somebody sees you and they're like, Austin! And just to make people happy because they love the character so much. That's the genius of Mike Myers. He just has created these lovable, enduring characters of the goofy guy. You know what I mean? He doesn't know and he's totally wrong, baby. Yeah.
He is totally wrong.
Yeah, it is. But there's one character I've never seen you do, which is Cat in the Hat.
Yeah, I looked at it and I love putting on makeup and getting into character. Other than Jay Leno, like a prosthetic chin, which takes me about 2 hours, we looked at doing the Cat in the Hat and it was so involved. I was like, I'm not. It was the same reason I didn't do the Grinch. It was just too involved.
Yeah, no, the Grinch is also too, like, if a Cat in the Hat is one level, the Grinch is like 3 levels up.
Yeah.
So I don't blame you for that. But
but Jim Carrey's Grinch was
that's out of this world. Jim Carrey as a whole is out of this world. Like the way he moves his face, and he does these different face is just crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, there's a photo of him doing Clint Eastwood, and it's no makeup. It's just him making the face. And I'm thinking, like, I've got a pretty rubbery face, but I was like, I can't figure out how he does it sometimes.
Right.
I'm trying to find that picture. I think it's there it is. Here, I'm gonna try and pull this up real quick. Just give me a sec.
Right, sure. So how about she told us about how you learned the vocals, like how they speak, but what about the physicality and stuff of each of the characters? So you're doing Trump or Mike Myers or Howard Stern.
Hold that thought for a second. I think I found it.
Wow.
This is crazy. It is.
His face is like rubber.
It is. The way he moves his face and does these different characters of it's just amazing to watch.
I remember Fireman. It was a Fireman Bill. What was the fireman's character? How he would just dry his lips. And his lip, as if her lip would stick like a burn victim. I was just this guy.
Crazy.
So incredible. So what was your question? I'm sorry.
About physicality, about how.
Oh yeah. Well, for me, I trained as an actor in New York, and so much of it is physical and being loose and trying to inhabit the character. And then there's a thing called just making small, tiny changes once you figure out the character to kind of refine it. So for me, the performance is not just the face and the voice and the material. It's got to be, if I'm doing Jay Leno, I got to be on stage. There's a photo. There's one photo that I love of me as Leno, because somebody took it from the audience, and I had the shoulder hunch, and I had the chin down, and I had my hands in his pockets like him. And I want to try to get There's one more. There's one more of me on stage. Probably the next one in that batch. Oh, that's that. Okay, I see. That's different. But trying to get that physicality is so right, because what I'm trying to do is I'm not doing it as an impersonation or an impression. I'm doing it as a character if you're seeing it in a play or a movie. And for me to totally commit and for you to buy in as an audience member, because a lot of the stuff I do is 30 minutes, sometimes longer, is to remove anything distracting that would pull you out of this suspension of disbelief. So if I can have the right clothes, have the right makeup, get that physicality right, and then that physicality plays into my performance, because when I first started doing Trump, I actually have pretty broad shoulders, and Trump's a really big guy. And when I first started doing him, I walk into a room and I have to wear heels when I play him. But, me physically puffing up my chest to do him makes me feel more confident. It's very funny playing him, to have that. And then with Dr. Phil, it's someone who's totally different. You know what I mean? Because he's always looking for recognition from you that he's right. So he's kind of he's more of a defensive character. He's kind of moving in on you all the time. So it's defining each one of those. And going back to Dr. Evil, the beauty of Dr. Evil is, for the most part, he doesn't move.
That's it. That's his only
movement. He kind of plants him. And again, it is, Austin Powers and Dr. Evil are definitely, two sides of the same coin, because Austin's always moving, baby. Because his energy is like right in his gut. Yeah, baby. Yes. And then like Dr. Evil, it's much more, he's like almost like a statue, And he never holds a gun.
What's your favorite character you've played out of all the characters? If you'd, what's your most iconic character that you love to be in the most?
I have to say, I love Austin because he's such a wonderful character. But for years, I did Lieutenant Columbo, the Peter Falk character. And when Peter Falk played Lieutenant Columbo, it was such a great character. Because Peter Falk had the eye, and he always played this. Here's this guy who solved all these murders, but he always acted dumb, and him acting dumb threw everybody off. And he made people feel, so comfortable, like, oh, I'm getting over on this cop. This guy has no idea. And then he'd always say, oh, sir, and one more thing. I'm a little confused. Can you help me out, sir? It was such a brilliant character to almost make the people confess because they thought he was so dumb. It's a great cop character that you don't really see anymore, other than like Monk. There are some certain elements in Monk because of his OCD, which where you thought he was just such a lunatic. He didn't know what he was doing. So it's a great character. But I always come back to Austin Powers. He's just such a fun character to do,
And the goofball energy too is that he's so funny and he's silly. I mean, it's funny to think that like if those movies came out nowadays, they might be altered.
Probably wouldn't
come out, right? And so it's a product of its time, but it's also like pretty legendary and iconic.
Well, and fascinating thing about the first Austin Powers film, it did not do that well in the theaters. It did okay. It was the first time that a movie, because most movies come out, do really well in the theaters and everybody wants to rent it. That film had a trajectory of like this. It was fascinating. And that's why the studio was like, maybe we should do a second one, which wouldn't have happened if there hadn't been video. 97. Yeah, it was still videotape and transitioning over to DVD. But those sales really made it like bigger than a cult classic. And I always thought that was like, thank God I went and saw it, but not everybody did, because it was, you know, it's kind of an acquired taste. But then the fact that it did so well on video, and so many people saw it and really gave it a second life, that got the, you know, if you had just based it on the initial box office, they never would have made a second one.
Wow. That's a wild story, right? And for you, like you were watching that movie, right? And you had done Mike Myers characters before.
Yeah.
But you were watching this movie and you're like, God damn, these characters are amazing. I'm gonna, like, did you know then that you were gonna start?
Right away. I was like, I'm gonna sell this. Like, you know, for me, if I'm gonna invest in, you know, the Austin Powers suits that I have right now are like $1,200, $1,300 each, because they were custom made. The wig's like $2,500. The glasses are prescription. I have to go to a special effects dentist to get the teeth. I have to stain my lower teeth. So it's a big commitment for me to do any character like that. But as soon as I saw that, I was like, this is going to work. I want to get the photos, get it on my website, get it out in the mailings, you know, pre-email. And it just took off, you know, because I was so lucky to be his height, his weight, his age. Now doing him all these years later, doing Austin Powers for 30 minutes now is like a workout. It's like jazzercise, you know.
I want to kind of transition into your acting career. So, was The Sopranos your first ever TV role?
No, there was that was 2008. I had done a pilot in Philadelphia, where I'm originally from, called Shannon's Deal. And I had like a one day on that. But when I started out in Philadelphia, it was still a pretty strong market. So I did a lot of industrial films and corporate training films. And then every now and then, like a film would come to town and you get a day or something on that, either as an extra or you'd be lucky enough to get a bump up on a film role. Then I would go to New York, and like every actor since the beginning of time end up on Law and Order, you know, like the body's over here. You know, you'd audition 3 times for the body's over here, or are you having wine with dinner? So, you know, I always would get those little tiny, small roles, and you know, but when I did The Sopranos, it was right around the time I did Meet the Spartans. Yeah, Meet the Spartans. Because 300 had come out. But the really cool thing, and I was really bummed about this, but the episode that I did for The Sopranos, and I actually got a check for that the other day.
Wow.
$3. But that was 2008. And I was still getting money from that. But I had a much bigger role. And there was a subplot. The episode is called Heidi and Kennedy. And it's about 2 girls who run Tony and Christopher off the road. And the plot, you know, this secondary storyline was that Christopher had been kind of moving away from Tony. And so we're his new neighbors. We're living in some really nice part of North Jersey. And we did a week of shooting where we had a dinner party together, and then we had a barbecue together, and then we did something else together. And Tony each time showed up out of nowhere. And he was really not liking the fact that Christopher and his wife was becoming friends with, you know, civilians, so to speak, non-mob people. And I was Howie Reinstein. And when the episode aired, it had all been cut.
Wow.
Everything. The only time you saw me was at the funeral home. But my very first day of shooting was on the Sopranos set, Silvercup Studios in Astoria, Queens. So I was just out of my mind, to be on the most successful HBO show ever. And and everybody was there because it was a funeral, and no one knew whose funeral it was. Nobody.
Right. So my question is, how or who got you on The Sopranos to film? Did you audition, or was it?
Oh, I auditioned. Yeah, I had auditioned multiple times, and I had Juliet Taylor, if I remember correctly. She was the casting director, and I had auditioned multiple times, and they always told me the same thing. They said, "You're just not Italian enough." I'm like,
"No,
what?" I was like, "Really? Okay." So they were obviously looking for a very specific type of Italian to play Italian.
Yeah, you are Italian, right?
You are.
Yeah, Di Domenico. Yeah, I'm
like judging just from the name, like I'd assume you are.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I did an off-Broadway show where I was cast as a Jewish character, and another show where I was a Jewish character. And then when I got on The Sopranos, I was Jewish. I'm thinking, I know a lot of Jewish people. I don't look like Jewish people. And I go to Italy, I look like everybody in Italy, but whatever. So I'm whatever gets me in. But it was a fun day of shooting. So I was doing theater in New York, and that's the only, you had to do theater to get the casting directors and agents out to see you. I did a really funny play off Broadway called The Line that picked up 1,000 babes, and I got to work with Julie Bowen, who went on to be in film and then hit it with Modern Family. So, I got to work with some people over the years who went on to much bigger careers. So that was really great.
That is amazing. And so talk to me a little bit about how you got on Meet the Spartans. So I believe your role was Donald Trump as well there.
Right. And the thing was, because I started doing Trump in 2004, because I had just watched the first season of The Apprentice. And I'd already, like I said, I'd already been fascinated with Trump, and I knew a lot about him, and I had met him and, did his birthday. And so The Apprentice came out, and I watched the entire season, and I was like, this guy's really interesting. And then the season ended, and I got a call from one of my New York agents who knew I did kind of tough voices. She said, "Are you doing Trump yet?" I said, he's in my head. I can hear his voice in my head. She said, "Would you be able to do it on?" This was a Friday. She said, "Could you do an audition on Monday for him? It's a voiceover." And I said, "Give me 1 hour." So I sat down and I broke the voice down. So I broke the voice down by those things I was talking about before: nasal placement, throat placement. He's from Queens. His vocal production where he speaks, like his nasal, all these things. And then I called her back and said, "Yeah, I can go in." And then I ran out and bought the first season of The Apprentice, which had just come out, which was a huge help. But the thing about The Apprentice was, it wasn't the stuff that you saw on the show, because that was all scripted and he's horrible with the script. Mm-hmm. I actually am now friends with one of the creators of the show. And they said he was terrible. He couldn't read, because he would be like, "Blue team, green team, today you're going to sell lemonade." Lemonade. And they would be like, "Oh." So, but a lot of the bonus material where he would just keep talking, that was the best stuff, because they would let the cameras roll because they never knew what they were going to use. But he was talking to this, it was getting down near the end, and there were 4 people, and 2 of the people were having like a romance, and he was fascinated by that. "So you two are very attracted to each other. I hear you like each other a lot. Is that true? You know what I mean? You find him handsome, you find her attractive." And I was like, that's it. That's it. It's not Right. It's not the staccato of him trying to read. He is staccato. There's definitely that. But it's when he's rolling with his interest. He's very interested in people, and he's really interested in romance, to tell you the truth. So that was the whole thing. And he loves business too. But I was like, oh, that's it. And then around that same time, he was on Howard Stern a lot. And he sounded totally different on Howard Stern because Howard made him feel really comfortable. And so if you ever heard him on Howard Stern, he was much more relaxed. It was much more. And this was before it was really being videoed. So I think he felt different. So there's about 5 different Trump voices. So once that happened, to give the long answer to your short question, once that happened, cool. Yeah. So I went in, I got that job, and guess who it was for? Trump. So I worked for Trump, supplying Trump's voice. And what it was, so Trump, yeah. So what happened was Trump was doing The Apprentice. He wanted to have The Apprentice at Taj Mahal. NBC said, no, we can't control that. We'd have to bring it here. And he said, all right, fine, I'll do it my own way. So what he did was he had the boardroom game. So you'd be in Atlantic City with your mom. You'd go in. They break you into 2 teams. There was somebody who looked at Carolyn Kepcher and George Ross from the first season, if you remember that. Yep. And they would say, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Trump will be here very, very soon, and we'll start the game. You'll be broken up. And then a couple minutes in, the phone rings, and they would go, oh, you can't. Oh, okay. And they would say, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Trump is very busy in New York. He can't make it, but we're going to put him on speakerphone. And then you do, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Taj Mahal, the greatest hotel casino in Atlantic City. Unfortunately, I can't be there. I'm working on a very, very big deal. So I went to the studio in Princeton, New Jersey, and recorded hundreds and hundreds of lines, hundreds and hundreds of words, and then reactions. Sure. Okay. Right. Blue team, you're terrible. Absolutely the worst. I can't believe it. I can't even believe you're here. So it was all that kind of stuff. I did that for like a week. I was on an ISDN line, so I could hear them on the speaker in the studio. And you know what the only direction they ever gave me in that week of recording was? Be meaner.
Be meaner.
Oh, yeah. Be meaner. I mean, what's crazy is you've been talking about like how you got into this whole ordeal with, voicing Trump for Trump, but you've never mentioned his most iconic catchphrase in the whole series.
You're fired.
Show. Exactly. That's exactly one.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that
did you
was
ever
a
have
big
to
deal. Oh, I did it all the time. One of the things was when I develop a character, for me is how can I sell it beyond someone coming to me? How can I sell it? So one of the big things I do are hosting award shows, I do things for like AT&T's national sales meeting, which might be a 3.5-day show. So in the course of that show, I might do 3 or 4 characters. But, for me to pitch them on what I do, they go, how do we do this? Well, in the opening general session, you'll have Dr. Phil. And then in the next general session where we talk about, earnings, it'll be Trump. And then we'll do a game show with Guy Fieri. And then we'll do that. So that's how I sell my stuff. And with Trump, to have Trump roast you, because I've always said Trump is the modern day Don Rickles. So I'll go into a corporate event and do like an hour roast. I'll roast the top 7, 8 executives at a company, which he does anyway. This guy is so bad. This guy doesn't know what he's doing. You know what? I've met terrible VPs, but he's the worst VP you guys know. And they would love it. They would send me the background information, like he writes long emails, leaves voicemails at 2 a.m. and all that. And then I would customize it. So I did that from about 2006 on just with Trump, but I'd already been doing that with Austin Powers and, not Guy Fieri, Dr. Phil and some of the other characters that had been around prior to that. So it was an easy transition. And then I was one of the few people doing Trump in 2004, 2005, 2006. So organically on Google or whatever the search engine was, I guess it was Google. Yeah, I was number 1. So when the producers of anything needed a Trump, I was always first. There wasn't anybody else.
Yeah.
There just wasn't anybody else. So when Meet the Spartans came up and I got the call from my agent, they said they found you online. And then they said, again, there wasn't really anybody else. And they liked the fact they saw that I had an acting background. So I wasn't just an impersonator. I knew what they were looking for. So then I flew out, shot my scenes, met some great people. And then a year later, they booked me for the next film. And I did a bunch of different characters for that one.
Wow, it's a great thing for you to end up being #1 on the Google for Trump,
Oh,
right?
it was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. It was really, and I had a really good ride. And then Anthony, oh God, I forget his name, the guy from the President Show, he started and he kind of like pushed me down. And then I came back up, and then Alec Baldwin came into the picture.
Right.
It would just keep moving, you know. So yeah. I really, and that was all organic. I never paid for placement or anything like that.
To be fair, even if they do, take over, there's one thing they will never be able to change, is that you're the OG Trump, right? Like
that's right. I've been around a long time. Time.
You've like, while Trump would legit criticize them and hate them for doing it, you were hired to do Trump's voice for Trump, which is
right
on a league of its own entirely, and it's crazy.
Yeah, and I have all these weird. I mentioned these weird connections that I have to Trump, like meeting him in 1990, doing his birthday, the whole thing with doing his voice at Taj Mahal, and then in 2006, when people were saying, "Hey, can you do appearances as him?" I had to get a wig made. So Bob Kelly, he used to do all the wigs for Saturday Night Live, all the weeks for the Broadway shows. I had known Bob for years. He was a great guy, big supporter of actors because he knew how they struggled for work. And I went to Bob and I said, "Bob, I need a Trump wig." And he goes, he's an older guy, almost like, Popeye. He said, "Well, Johnny, that'll be like $7,000. And I said, "This is 2006, 2005. That was a lot of money. I mean, I don't think I was making that a year." And he said, I go, "Bob, I don't have that kind of money." And I said, "I won't see a return on this wig for, probably at least a year and a half." And he said, "Well," he goes, "I got one here. I could, you could do payments." I said, "You already have a Trump wig?" He goes, "Yeah, they shot a commercial." What it was a Visa commercial after Trump had gone broke, where Trump is on top of the Chrysler building. He has a Visa card. It blows out of his hands, ends up in a dumpster on the street. Right. And his body double is jumping into the dumpster to get the card. You can look it up online. It's hilarious. It's really a funny commercial.
Yeah.
To see Donald Trump coming out of a dumpster. But that wig on the body double, I ended up buying that. So I have all these kind of weird connections to Trump. And then I started doing it. And then again, Trump needed me because he was supposed to do a cross promotion between The Apprentice and Embassy Suites, and he wasn't available. So who did they call? Me, because I'd already done his voice, and now I was doing the full look. So I ended up on Fox and Friends in 2006 as Trump, for Trump.
Wow. Right.
Yeah.
And that was like 10 years before he ran for president, right? I mean,
yeah. Oh, at least, right? 2006. Yeah. Right. Yep. 10,000.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
10?
And 2006. And then
that was before he was even on WWE, man. That's like way back.
Shaving Vince McMahon's head.
Yep. Also giving the ultimate "you're fired" line. That was just crazy.
You're fired. He went really over the top on that one. It was hilarious. And he almost took out Vince McMahon's eye. Vince McMahon said, he goes, "I thought I was going to lose an eye." Because when Trump came in, he came in here. And then he went here. It was like, "Oh my God, I'm going to lose an eye."
That's good. Imagine if he did. That would have been the lawsuit of the century, not the stupid Amber Heard and Johnny Depp shit that we got. That would have been the trial of the century.
Yeah, right.
But, it is what it is at the end of the day. I think our last question is, what's the future looking like for John?
Well, I go back on the road. For me, I like to keep things different. So I'm going back to doing corporate work because obviously COVID made things tough. So I've got to kind of, as an actor, you need to refill the coffers, and then you can go back and start auditioning for TV and film work. So I'm going back onto the road. I'll be in New York for 5 days, hosting the NFT VIP NYC. And then I go to Atlantic City for a 3-day job in Atlantic City. Then I fly back here. Then I go to Tampa as Trump. which is unusual. I haven't been getting a lot of Trump work, but this huge real estate mortgage show is bringing me in as the comedy. So like Les Brown and some other big speakers, and I'll be coming in to talk about incredible things, my incredible success. So incredible, I have to tell you.
It is
very excited.
Incredible. It is.
Yeah. So
we're also excited too.
Yeah. So I'll start auditioning again, and I'm looking for roles of just being me without having to play a character. But those characters pay the bills. So I love doing them, and I feel grateful to be able to do them. But, you know, I want to strike that balance of character work and comedy, and then live shows here in Vegas, which I've done.
Well, I guess we're very excited to see where this all goes, and to see you more on the movie screen. And
yes, that would be nice.
Right? That's what we're all waiting for. And it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Honestly,
thanks,
thank you very
guys.
much for coming.
Thanks, John.
Anything you'd like to let the world know or shout out?
Yeah, if you can follow me on all of my social media platforms. I'm everywhere, most places. I'm the Johnny D Show. But some of the stuff, because of timing, it's John D. Domenico. But just put my name in. I'm like the only.
Well, you can find all his socials in the description below.
Link in bio.
You can. Yep. Pretty much. There you go.
Or as Trump used to say, "Bing bong, bong, bing bong,
yep,
bong."
Pretty much. That's where.
Yeah, baby.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Thank you very much for watching another episode.
Oh, behave. All right, guys. Thanks, man.
Right.
See ya.
Well, thank you for watching another episode of Meet the Show. If you guys enjoyed this episode half as much as we enjoyed filming it for you, please do like, subscribe, and share. Follow John on all of his socials in the description below. From our family to yours, peace, love, and happiness. We'll see you.
Thank you, guys.